So here I am, I've just come to the Brychmelyn Woods, just on the edge of Bethesda, on the lower slopes of the Carneddau, and lo and behold, I found a mathematician's paradise. Look straight ahead and we can see we've got these trees that have been cut down, so we can see the rings, we've got various stretches of wood there, and then if we just pan round a bit, and you can see just over here, we've got a big pile of the brash. So plenty of sticks and materials there to do all kinds of different mathematical tasks and activities. And then we can also, if we pan round some more, we can see we've still got trees standing. So we can do all kinds of tasks associated with standing trees and their size, the volumes, loads of things we do there, including, as we can see, all the way up the trunk into the canopy, then that gives us the potential of doing lots of tree measuring tasks as well. So all in all, I found a fantastic site here for doing lots of different mathematical tasks. And what's even better, which is kind of like the icing on the cake, is that just the other side of where you can see in this shot, there's a flat area, so we've got an area that we can have our group together to do those debriefing or the introductions to the tasks and have them all on a nice, easy site for management. So we can look at some mathematical concepts out in the field. Here's a nice simple one using sticks. So send the pupils off to go and find maybe a favourite stick and come back, discuss something about it, what's similar, what's different. So here, maybe we pick out the fact that the bark is peeling off. And likewise on this one, the bark's intact, but it's got branches, it's branched. And this one also. So what we can do is we can set up a circle. We can make that into 2 circles. You could do this with a rope if you've got one, a bit of string, or just draw it in some mud, and then we can create an overlap. And here we have a Venn diagram, so we can put our bark peeling stick in one bit, we can put our branched in another, and we can put a stick that's branched and has bark peeling in the middle of the Venn diagram. And you can add to this as you like with more sticks, or continue the task further. So we're outside, we're physically active, which is good for our well-being, and we can cover our maths things as well as learning a bit about nature. All good. So here we have a fairly simple mathematical task involving quite a few sticks. So you need a few more than you've got here, so send pupils off to find various sticks. And the idea of this one is that we're looking at and comparing the size of the sticks, and it's an activity building on that. So the idea is that you build a tower with the size of the twigs decreasing as we go up. So it brings in a bit of maths, it brings in some technology associated with construction. Oops. There we go, there. And also chance to bond with nature. So this one here's got some fungi on it, so chance to look at the fungi and enjoy being in nature and all those health and well-being benefits, as well as doing our maths work. Great all round. So here we've got a really good resource for our shelter building activity, and there's many different ways that you can run a shelter building activity. You can run it in terms of building a shelter for people or for animals, and you can brief it and set it up in different ways depending what you want to get out of the activity. There's one example done by NRW online which goes into shelter building, and in this example they also talk about the different building construction types that you can do and have some ideas on there. you don't have to do it like that. You can use it as a team building exercise, you can use it as a problem solving exercise, so maybe you might revisit some of this afterwards. They've also got some examples, some knots that you could teach them beforehand so that they go out and then they test those in the field. Or you can just keep it simple, just use the resources that are out here for that. Another way that you can bring more maths in, again there's an NRW explanation for this one, which you could look at, and that's to set it up as if you were going to sell the home. And in this one they make it for animals and use like an estate agent scenario and think about pricing, so you're bringing that monetary level in, that other layer of maths again, as well as the kind of the science and technology maths element of the actual construction that you're doing. And of course the teamwork in doing it. So lots of different ideas, and you can plan to use this kind of activity in many different ways depending what you want to get out of the session. In terms of using woodlands for teaching and learning, there's quite a lot of talk about forest schools, and some people think that you need to be a forest schools leader to be able to do education in a woodland or in a forest. There's plenty of other things that you can do in the woods without doing the forest schools training. If you have the opportunity to do it, do take it, especially if you want to be able to do activities using knives and also lighting fires, because it teaches you the safe way to do that. The other really good thing about forest schools is the idea that you can build on that learning, returning to a site over and over again, and you can build on the subject learning, and also you can build skills and confidence in that way too. So just here in this small little patch, there's so much that we could do academically, and also in terms of the habitat there's so much we can do in terms of activities and skills. So if you have the opportunity to do the forest schools training, do go for it, do it, but don't let that stop you. If you can't do the course, don't let it stop you using woods for learning, because there's still many other activities that you can do here to promote learning. By now we have reached Bryn Mayrig Woods in Bethesda. You can see that this area is bounded by a wall along the left side of the camera and straight ahead. The path leads down to the river in the distance, and there's plenty of room between the trees for children to move freely. To our right we have a moss-covered crag. Here, on the other side of the crag, you can see the river over to the right and a patch of longer vegetation near it. The rest of the area is flat and suitable for a range of activities and games. We have some big trees and a variety of things we could send pupils off to explore independently. As we continue round, you can see the crag again, and then the river. You might like to keep the children away from the river while you send them off to do their independent activities. By setting a boundary or standing in the two locations where the camera has been placed, you can control the area pupils use while they're doing their independent activities. You can keep them within sight and away from the river entirely if you set a boundary or a person to the right of the picture where the path leads down to the river. When I was here with my nephew the other day, I asked him to take pictures of things that interested him. These are his pictures. This simple task enabled him to follow his interest and gave me the chance to explain to him how to get the camera to focus. He asked me to take this photo because he thought the fungi growing on the big branch was interesting, but the fact that the tree trunk had been stopped by the trees, enabling him to sit above the little waterfall, was even more interesting. So, the challenge for us is to allow the pupils to take risks without it all going pear-shaped. I was quite happy for him to do this, but I don't think I would be as comfortable with a group of children all trying to do this at once. The author, Tim Gill, writes about the need to allow children to take risks. He argues that if we don't allow them to take risks, they may develop to become risk-averse or might turn to risky behaviours as teenagers that can include sex and drugs. An interesting area in terms of developing risk assessment skills is this craggy area. By the way, my nephew thought this bench on the top was interesting as it was shaped like a seat. As Dan demonstrates, it's possible to walk about on it fairly safely if you're careful, but it does need thought in order to manage a class on it to ensure they don't knock or push each other and so on. Here we have a steep section. It's possible to come down somewhere like this facing forwards if you're confident enough, but if you fall, you'll land on your face. A safer way to come down is to do so as if you were climbing down a ladder, but it's hard to see where your feet need to go. You can help someone low in confidence come down whilst keeping a distance by explaining to them where to put their feet and being ready to prevent them tumbling further if they fall.
So this is an app called Seek, which is really useful in helping to identify different plants that you might come across as you go out and about as well. It works offline, as you can see it's doing here, and what it does is as you shine it on different plants, it will start to identify those as best as it possibly can, and it'll work it out from phylum and class and order until eventually it'll give you the actual species that it's got. But if you just kind of move the camera around, eventually it gets there. Just worked out to the genus being blueberries, cranberries and allies. Let's see if we can get it all the way down to species value. There we go. So it's got it as the common bilberry. So if I take a photograph of that, and it's identified it there correctly as the common bilberry, and it can then give you a full species key fact book on there, particularly if you're access onto the internet, and also you can post to iNaturalist one of the many kind of different recording data sets that are out there as well. This is particularly useful for some species from the summer to the winter. Bilberries in the summer when they're fruiting are quite easy to see. In the winter become a little bit more challenging and can be a real crutch and a useful tool for students to go and use and see what they can identify. So I want to talk about an app now called Seek. Seek is one of the many citizen science apps that are available for Apple and Android, and this one's free to download. This one's been created by CEH, the Centre for Ecology and Hydrology, and JNCC as well. What this does is this allows you to record any of the species that you come across when you're out and about and exploring. And this will then upload it and make it available to the biological recording centres so that the data can be reviewed by experts, and it feeds into the big data set that then is available for biological centres and organisations to have a look at, but also are made available for educational resources and teaching as well. So you can see here, really simply you can add a new species in there. So we found the common bilberry before, so we can search for the bilberry in this case. And you can put in plants, you can put in animal species as well, that you might have seen a bird or something going past. And find your species. You can then add your date, your location, how many you found, the abundance, the rough numbers in there. As much information as you can put in makes that data more useful for the experts when they find it. And when you get access to the internet later on, you can upload this for approval by those biological recording centres. Okay. So as well as a lot of the apps that we've been looking at as well, the FSC actually creates a few different keys. So they're great to use in the outdoors. They're fully laminated, shiny and waterproof, and they can be quite simple. The name trails particularly, so I've got the woodland name trail here, and we've also got the tree name trail, are really simple to use. They're dichotomous, there's only two options for each thing, and students just start at the beginning, where it says start here, and they answer questions about the individual species that they found and work their way through. And on the back, we've got lots of information about the type of environment that they're going to be in. So I've got the woodland name trail here for all the different creepy crawlies and things we might find. I've got the tree name trail for the large growing trees that we've got around here as well, but we also do rocky shores and beach name trails and seashore name trails as well.
Clycha'r Gog gan Robert Williams Parry. Dyfod pan ddel y gwcw, myned pan el y maint, y gwyll atgoffus bersawr, yr hen lesmeriol baint. Cyrraedd, ac yna ffarwelio. Ffarwelio o'ch na pharhaint. Dan goed y goryweirid yn hwfn y slysau'r glog, ar ddôl a chlawdd a llechwedd, ond llechwedd lom yr og. Y tyf y blodau gleision, a dyf yn sŵn y gog. Mwynach na chwirol-garol o glochdi Llandygau, yn rhwyfo yn yr awel yw mudion glycha'r mai. Yn llenwi'r cof a'i canu, o'ch na bain ddi drai. Cans pan ddeol rhin y gwyddfyd i'r hafnos ar ei hint, a mynych glich yr eos i'r glaswell megis cynt. Ni bydd y gog na'i chlychau yn gyffro yn y gwynt. So I read a poem about bluebells in Welsh, and in Welsh we say the cuckoo bells is the name for the bluebell. And I think it's interesting to explore that relationship between the names of our plants and the culture, and to think about how they've got those names. So we have those Latin names which we need for standardisation, but there's plenty of other opportunities for us to be quite creative in how we think about our names of plants and so forth. So we can be quite descriptive. If we think about common names, there's a range of different common names across England and Wales, and there's differences in the Welsh language and the English language in terms of how those names have come about. So some are more about the colours or the shapes, and some, like the bluebell in Welsh, is about that contextual time of year that it's here and associated with the cuckoo. So with your pupils you can explore that and be quite creative about coming up with your own names and descriptions for the plants, maybe the flowers, the mosses and so forth that you find. So another way that you could use poetry would be in the mountains in the Carneddau. There's lots of poetry about shepherds in Welsh, so that gives you the potential to make that link between the personal and the lived experience and the human history, together with how the landscape's been used and how that landscape's changed over time, and perhaps how it might change into the future. In terms of the pupils making their own creative writing or poetry, a good place to start is to think about adjectives, so describing the textures of the field or the patterns of the mosses or the plants that you find. Also tapping into any other sensory experiences like sounds and touch. And you can start to build that up to enable the pupils to be able to make their own creative writing. I've done a little one just on a walk in the Carneddau, which maybe I'll share later on, and you can see the idea that I have. But don't be afraid, just go for it. Go and be creative and find language and other artistic outputs in the delights of the shapes and the patterns and the feel of the different organisms we have in the woodland and the Carneddau generally.
So I've got an app here called Freeze Paint, and what this does is it works a bit like, I kind of describe it as a scratch card, and you can see it uses the camera. So here we've got some amazing examples of these slate porches. And what you can do, just by rubbing your finger on there, it will highlight those porches, and you can see it's now locked those items in there, so then you can create a photo of something else. So we might put in the car that we can see here. And you can highlight and get as many of these different items as you want, so you're creating a bit of a photo montage. So you might be looking at different bits of architecture. You might also look at setting the students off with finding positive and negative, and they create two different montages. So that could be of tourism in different areas and the positive and negative of those. But it could also be used as a digital journey stick. So as they're walking around, what highlights and what things they see on their journey that they might want to put onto a single photograph that they've got here.
Dan is now demonstrating an app called Sketch on a site near Ysgol Pen y Bryn, Bethesda. Unfortunately, it's so windy we can't hear him, hence me talking. As he uses Sketch, he is explaining that it allows you to take a photo and then annotate it with text, arrows and emojis while you're out in the field. It is useful for subjects such as geography when you want to note things that you can see in the landscape. Here he is recording the shape of the valley and some of the significant developments. Traditionally, we record landscape features using a field sketch. In a way, a field sketch is more flexible as it enables you to focus in on things that might not be so obvious in a photo. However, on an iPad with a waterproof case, you can quickly have fun noting key things down while you are out and about, labelling less obvious features in the photo as you go. As the app is available for free, older pupils could download the app and use it on their own phones. I would like to thank Dan from the Lle de Crea Field Centre in Bethesda for his contribution to the video. I will leave you with a short clip, perhaps as pupils could create, using photos and adjectives inspired by a walk in the Carneddau.